The German Robert Koch Institute currently classifies around every second country on Earth as a high-risk area. The individual states repeatedly report new records of new corona infections, and that's why I want to give you an overview today. Luxembourg and almost 40 other countries have been wholly or partially high-risk areas since this Sunday due to the high number of corona infections. The German Robert Koch Institute announced the new classifications on Friday. Anyone who enters Germany from such an area and is not fully vaccinated or recovered has to be in quarantine for 10 days and can only get rid of it with a negative test 5 days after arrival at the earliest. Sweden, Australia, Argentina, the United Arab Emirates, with a winter holiday destination Dubai, Israel and Kenya are now among others on the risk list. Overall, the number of high-risk areas increased to more than 100 countries in one fell swoop. This means that around every second country in the world is again a high-risk area. Of the neighboring countries of Germany, only Austria is not a high-risk area. The classification as a high-risk area is accompanied by a travel warning from the Federal Foreign Office for unnecessary tourist trips. It makes it easier for tourists to cancel trips that have already been booked free of charge, but does not mean a travel ban. Countries and regions with a particularly high risk of infection are classified as high-risk areas. But it is not just the infection numbers that are decisive. Other criteria are the speed at which the virus is spreading, the burden on the health system, or a lack of data on the corona situation. In Luxembourg, the number of new infections per 100,000 population within a week on Saturday was 1,329.1, according to data from Johns Hopkins University and the European Health Authority ECDC. In Sweden, the 7-day incidence nationwide was last given as 843 as of January 2nd. In Israel, for example, the number of new corona infections these days is higher than it has ever been since the beginning of the pandemic. The Ministry of Health announced on Sunday that more than 17,500 new cases had been registered within 24 hours. The number of seriously ill has more than doubled within 2 weeks. Most recently, it was 205. More than 250,000 Israelis, previously only over 60-year-olds, immunocompromised and medical staff, received the 4th dose of corona vaccine within a week. In Great Britain, the number of deaths in corona-infected people confirmed by means of a PCR test exceeded the 150,000 mark over the weekend. It is the first country in Europe, with the exception of Russia, to complain of so many deaths in the pandemic. The coronavirus has taken a terrible toll in our country, wrote British Prime Minister Boris Johnson on Twitter on Saturday, but he is the reason why the number is that high. The actual number of corona deaths in the UK is likely to be even higher. The country, with around 67 million inhabitants, is still firmly in the grip of the Omicron wave. Around 146,000 new infections were registered on Saturday alone. While the curve in London now seems to be flattening out, the numbers in the north of England continue to rise sharply. The government in London has so far rejected any stricter measures in most of England. Meanwhile, the Johnson administration continues to face criticism for allegedly disregarding its own lockdown rules. And in Italy, the compulsory corona vaccination for people over 50 years of age came into force at the weekend. However, unvaccinated people still have time before they face consequences. From February 1st, there will be a fine of €100 for those who have not yet been vaccinated or who have not received their second dose or the booster, even though they could. And before school starts after the winter holidays, today, when I'm filming this, and yesterday when you're seeing this, in some regions of Italy there's displeasure against the government's plan to hold on to face-to-face classes despite the current corona situation. The president of the southern Italian region of Campania had already taken action and by decree prohibited classroom teaching until January 29th. Sicily postponed the start of school to Thursday. Italy is currently experiencing a rapid increase in the number of corona cases. According to health experts, the number of cases is also increasing significantly in young minors and young adults. And in China, Beijing's neighboring city of Tianjin ordered mass tests for the entire population after the first local Omicron cases occurred in the country. As the authorities of the 15 million metropolis announced on Sunday, 20 corona infections have been identified in the city since Friday. Sequencing showed that the first 2 cases were infections with the Omicron variant. Most of the remaining 18 infections were linked to them, the state-run Xinhua's news agency reported. Tianjin is a neighboring city to Beijing, where the Winter Olympics are slated to begin on February 4th. Participants in the games should only be allowed to move in Beijing in a sealed so-called bubble to prevent the virus from being introduced. China, which has a strict zero COVID policy, has largely had the virus under control for more than a year. However, there are always local outbreaks. Observers believe that if the Omicron variant spreads, it will be much more difficult for China to keep the number of infections as low as before. Nationwide, China reported 92 new local corona cases on Sunday. And I'll see you in my next video. Bis gleich.